has been some time since we've recorded an episode, but we are back with the start of the summer, and we're of course here with our good friend Jack Wallace. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, summer edition, no stress of school, so I'm feeling good.
That's the vibes, man. That's the vibes. So now that we're back here to record, what books have you caught up with lately? Specifically the one that you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, before we went out for the school year, I went to a bookstore, I got some books, and one of them was called Quarter Life, and at first I was like, I don't know what quarter life means, but then I realized, it means of people, our age, from like 16 to like early 30s, and people who go through, it's about people in that age group who go through quarter life crises, and like what those are, if you find yourself in one, what to do about it, and how to navigate your way through this age, because people usually, traditional view of society is that, you get your high school diploma, then you go to college, then you get a job, and you work for the rest of your life. But a lot of people assume, especially who are pushed through that narrow mindset, as soon as they start college, they start to go through things that, maybe this isn't what I want for my life, and stuff like that. So that was the first book I read, and obviously I have summer reading lists that I'm working on, but so far I'm pretty busy, so I've been working a lot, getting that bag, but that's what I've been reading in my free time, so yeah.
All right, sounds good. So I know that there was a specific part of the book that you wanted to talk about, as we usually do, but this one resonated with you the most because it gave a lot of information that, especially because this is a nonfiction book, is very important for people to understand. So if you want to start talking about that right now, we can get on with it.
Yeah, I will. So I never heard of quarter life crisis, and so because everyone's heard the midlife crisis, it's like, you hit 35, and then it's like, what do I do now? Am I living properly? But what psychologists especially, are figuring out now is that people actually go through crises basically right out of high school or even at the end of high school, and there's when I talk to any adults, when even I had questions, first year at Wayne State, I all heard the same thing is, I didn't know what I really wanted to do with my life at that age, so just keep going and you'll figure it out. And that didn't make me feel any better at all. And so reading this book, I'm like, everyone goes through something similar to a quarter life crisis, or maybe an actual crisis. And now let me, define that. When people will go through a quarter life crisis, there's two types of people who are looking for security, like their security, the mindset's based in how to get security for themselves, or the mindset's based in how to get meaning out of their lives. And so security is like a really good job, getting all A's in college, getting that good job and making the money for the rest of my life. And then meaning people are more, you can think of it as more creative people, like people, it's like, I want to make really nice art, or I want to make good movies, or I want to be a best journalist, I want to be an author, stuff like that. And they're conflicting in some areas, like meaning types, usually they have a lot of chaos in their lives of, I don't, like for example, maybe their rooms are messy because they don't keep a lot of order, and they don't, like there's a lot of areas in their life that's just completely unstable, when stability types is like too strict on themselves. And so when I'm reading through this book, I'm like, I bet there's a lot of kids who are pushed to their parents into being a stability type of, get that law degree, get that engineering degree, get that really hard degree, and that they're suffering through college trying to get this really hard degree, breaking their minds and stuff, is like, and then they reach the quarter life crisis, was like, I'm suffering because I'm doing all this hard work. Is this what I want out of my life? And so that's what basically a quarter life crisis is. And for a meaning type, it's, my life is almost no stability. How do I find stability? Because I'm so all over the place, like I can't even focus on the creative work I want to do. And so it's finding meaning for a stability type and finding stability for a meaning type. And so that's what the book really touched on. And what I really liked about it was this idea in the book that was called, it was about separation. Is a lot of times when you're brought up in a family, you do what your family, basically parents, what they tell you to do. A lot of times it's what a lot of people do, like family traditions, like, or what your parents tell you to go to college for and stuff like that. And this idea of separation was like, when you're reached adulthood, you don't actually have to do exactly what your parents say from how to live the rest of your life, because it's your own life. And so if you're at a point where you're, suffering in school, doing something, you just have, it's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? How am I going to live the rest of my life like this? Like, once you reach that point, I think, which a lot of people usually reach their first 2 years of college, that's when, you see college dropouts, or you see people who, because they haven't figured things out, they just end up getting worse grades in college than they would rather have if they had things together. But since they have this crisis, they're not as effective in school or in anything in their lives, relationships, even if they're doing sports or anything like that. And so really being able to separate from that family tradition of, well, you have to go to school and get this degree, or you have to, there's some cultures who do like arranged marriages and stuff like that. Like, I know a lot of Islamic friends that I've met at Wayne State, they were a lot of them have talked about like arranged marriages and stuff, and which in America, American culture, there's not much of that. And so that's took me aback. I was like, wait, what? Your parents want you to get married to someone you don't even know? And they're like, yeah, I don't have a choice. I was like, what? And so that was completely new for me. And so hearing them talk about that, I was like, wow, I didn't realize people had to go through that. And so being able to, and by separate, it's not like, completely cut off your family or completely never, you don't have to do the complete opposite of your family tradition. It's just about getting that new perspective of, you actually have to, once you reach adulthood, you have to learn how to think for yourself and really rethink, okay, what do I actually want from my life? And if you're too constrained to the family tradition, if you feel that you personally are too constrained to that and you need to be open to that, then that's a big, mountain to climb of, okay, how do I start separating from this tradition to find my own path for life?
Yeah, that's completely understandable. I feel like that's a thing that a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to what you talked about with the people who are leaning more on the business side of like those areas of life, and then those who are on the more creative aspects.
Yeah.
So this side has one thing together, but the other side has their thing together that is the opposite of what this person or this group has together.
Right.
Do you think that those people can come together and sort of learn from each other, or think about how they can get those aspects together in their life so that everyone is happy, or are there fundamental differences between both of them that makes it somewhat more challenging?
I think, a lot of the book talked about that there was people who were in relationships of a stability type and a meaning type, and a lot of it was conflict. And relationship was romantic relationship, but there's also familial relationships. Like a lot of time you'll have like the oldest is, he's a stability type, went through college, has a good job now, and the youngest is going through college and he's not doing so well because he's a meaning type, and so he's not looking for that stability. And so the parents might say, oh, you're doing worse in college, but it's like, no, I'm just a different type of person. And so there are a lot of times you'll see, is the book mentioned jealousy of, like, this is like in a toxic relationship, is, I'm kind of jealous of what they have together, but then that person, like the meaning type, is jealous of the stabilities, type stability, but the stability type is jealous of how much fun the meaning types have. Usually they're carefree and they're relaxed and they're having fun and they're doing things that are meaningful to them, and they're not, hardcore studying all the time and hardcore, focused on finances and stuff like that. They're actually enjoying life. And so there's some jealousy there. But I think if they learn from each other, like you said, if they came together and learned from each other, that's a person who's really relaxed and they're enjoying their life, and they might not have all the stability that I have, but I can learn from them. And then that person can, maybe I have too much fun and I need some stability, so I can learn how to have a stable life from this person. And that can happen from, like I said earlier, from like a familial, like sibling relationship, or even a romantic relationship. Opposites attract for a reason, so usually they'll come together and they'll learn from each other. But that also causes conflict in a romantic relationship when you have a partner and you're really stable and they're super messy and chaotic, and they don't have anything together, and that breeds, probably arguments and jealousy and stuff like that. But if you focus more on, oh, they're a different type of person than I am, instead of trying to change them into the type of person I am, we can work together to both share a little bit of each, so we're both happier, because everyone needs stability and everyone needs meaning. So it is really about the coming together to learning from the people in your life who are the opposite of you.
Awesome. And I know that it's really across your whole life, this kind of subject, how, there's stability and then there's meaning, and then you have to have both of those to live a stable life.
Mm-hmm.
But how does this advice apply to us in the current moment? I know most of us who are watching this video just finished our first year of college. Things are more certain than they were when we were new, but there are still many new things that are uncertain as a result of going through this path, as life is. So how do you think that applies to us in the current moment?
I just, there's always the hard moments, and through those hard moments, it's like, am I really, what do I really want to do with my life? I feel like that question happens to a lot of people, in our grade and in our, in this moment. It's like, okay, what am I really doing? Or what steps am I doing now that's going to affect me for 40 years? Like, what's going on now? And they're the people who are thinking about that, and I think they could read this book and learn from is almost a lot of people go through that. Like, you're not alone, because sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm the only person thinking about the rest of my life. It's like, no, most people are. And so, second of all, it's like, well, you have to figure out, are you a stability or a meaning type? Because maybe you do have too much stability, and maybe you really do need to, what's causing you too much stress in your life is that you're just too stressed out, and you're too, I need to get the perfect grades, get the perfect job, get the perfect degree, stuff like that. But you're not relaxed and actually enjoying the moment, when if you were a little bit more relaxed, you had the stability, but you also can get rid of some of that stress and have a little fun every once in a while. But there's also the meaning types, who a lot of people, especially at this age, they probably do a lot more weed because, they're just having fun, a lot more alcohol because obviously it's college, so you're out there away from your parents. So maybe you're having too much fun. It's like, oh, my grades are really slipping. Oh, my room's a mess. Like, I can't handle finances. I can't handle the basic job. Like, it's hard for me to get up and go to work. It's hard for me to get to my classes. It's hard for me to do my schoolwork. It's like, well, if all I want to do is like, maybe you do love to paint, and so it's like, all I want to do is paint. I don't really care about, making money and stuff like that. It's like, well, you need to learn how to show up to your classes, how to mitigate between having stability and having fun, and you just need to organize your life more, so when you have fun, you're not stressed out of, oh, I actually have none of my life together. Because there's some people who, the book specifically mentioned that it's like, a lot of times there's people who the answer to this problem of what do I do for the rest of my life is like, they never really grow up, or they take a long time to, because after college you keep partying like college students, because they just don't know what else to do. It's like, all I did was party through college, and I don't know what I want to do with my life, so I'm just going to keep partying for a while. And that obviously takes a toll on your body, as far as, and stuff like that. So figuring out if, okay, I don't have the stability in my life I want, that's okay, because that happens to everyone, or not everyone, but all meaning types. And so if you're that type of person, then you can really learn how to get more stability in your life, which will obviously help you with your career, with your grades, with, well-being in general. Figuring out what type you are, and then figuring out how you can learn from the other side, and either, de-stress yourself or reorganize yourself would really be beneficial to get, better grades, you will end up getting a better job, because you'll have your life together, and you'll be a stable person, and so that'll just help you figure out everything else. So when you think, oh, what am I going to do for the rest of your life? It's like, you already have your life organized, and you're already a stable person, so you can take on the bigger challenges of your life easier.
That is definitely very understandable, and especially considering that we have a lot of free time now. Everyone has their own problems.
Right.
So given that this is approaching a wider audience, everyone can do their own separate research to be able to figure out what they need the most.
For sure. Yeah, I went visit back my high school, because I'm friends with some of my teachers, and so I tell them, I was like, oh, I have my jobs, and I have my summer work and my running, and I was like, oh, everything's going good. He's like, yeah, but like, what are you doing for your personal growth? And so that like really made me realize, like, oh, this is like, this is like, now you're free from school, but you need to really, search yourself for, okay, how am I going to be prepared for next semester? Because I know a lot of people struggled with this semester, including me. It was hard. College is hard. So it's like, okay, how are you going to prepare for the next semester's hardships? And so taking on that personal growth and really finding who you are and what you need to keep growing would really help you in the next semester and years of college.
For sure. Well, that was certainly a great talk. Thank you so much for joining us again, Jack.
Of course. Yeah, I love doing this. This is great.
Yeah. When can you expect to talk about the next book?
I'm actually going on vacation, so I'll have to see what reading I get done over the vacation. In about 2 to 3 weeks, there'll be another episode ready. So continue with that personal growth.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you again for being here, and thank you for joining us on Mr. Wynn's Weekly.